Here is why being a corporate dev is both good and bad. Let's start with the pros. The first pro is that you learn from other engineers. I think that the experience of learning from other engineers who are more experienced with you, and specific to this channel, software engineers that are more skilled than you, really gives you the ability to upgrade your own skill set, and it helps you understand where your limitations are and how you can improve them. And typically when you're around, and I would say this is almost like a universal principle, that when you're around other people that are better than you at the thing that you're trying to get good at, a lot of times you will rate, if you care enough about it, you put in the time, the sweat equity, a lot of times you will raise yourself to that same skill level, so that you can, there's a lot of dynamics as to why you do that. One of the core reasons though is for a lot of people, for a lot of guys, is because they want to be the best engineer that they could be, right? And then the other aspect of it too is mentorship. I think if you can find a mentor, especially a mentor who has experience in software engineering, in a field or a business niche that you are very interested in, that's almost like striking gold, because you're going to be able to learn from their experiences in a proactive way. Because when you don't have a mentor, a lot of times the most effective way to learn, or I don't know if it's the most effective way, but one definitive way to learn is to go out and just mess up things yourself. And yes, you definitely do learn and you definitely do gain experience, but a step above that is being able to learn from somebody else's errors, to be able to learn from somebody else's mistakes. And also, just if a mentor gets very involved with you, one of the other benefits is that they can put you on a path. They can put you on a trajectory, on a journey, so that you don't have to more so think about am I learning the right things? Am I focusing my energy where I need to? Those kind of questions are answered for you. And it's more just about being able to execute well on the expectations that are set on you as a student of a mentor that will ultimately end up dictating the progress in your skill set. So there's a pro there. The other pro is a consistent pay. So you know that for as long, and I'll put that in italics, for as long as you are employed, you will get a paycheck on the 1st and the 15th. I've freelanced and I have done corporate. And when you're freelancing, it's much more of a hunt and catch kind of game, where you might have periods where a lot of money is coming in, or relative to other periods. And then you have other periods where it's slower. Maybe you only have one or two contracts, or maybe you whittle down to a single contract and you have to go and find more clients, stuff like that. So definitely, if you like the consistency of being able to get paid on the 1st and the 15th, that is another pro. Another pro is that you learn the software development lifecycle. And specifically, you learn how teams release software. And I think this becomes extremely valuable, especially when the software that's being released it has scale to it. So it's not just a to-do list app. I'm saying that jokingly, but it's not just a small app. A lot of times, the applications that you get to work on a professional scale have a user base, and how you release that software is, in a way, a delicate process, because you don't want to interrupt the existing platform that those users are on. And I'm talking specifically to my experience, which is in web development. So being able to see that process unfold, the different the reliance on different environments and different coding environments, as well as interacting in that process with other engineers who are not just software engineers. Maybe you are working with a QA engineer of some sort, or you are working with other personnel like QA testers and and also non-technical personnel as well, like project managers or product designers or product owners, stuff like that. And getting to see how software is released at scale is a very, very valuable thing that will expand how you think about solving the problems that you come across in your career. Here's another pro is that you get to learn version control. And version control is something that when you're learning on your own seems valuable because it's kind of like like a PlayStation save feature, right? Where you save it, you come back to the game and you get to play where you started. Version control is a little bit more complicated than that. But the key thing is that you see some value of it when you're starting out, but once you do version control with the team, you see just how valuable it is on keeping things organized and making sure that people don't cross their wires, or different software engineers don't cross their wires. And also it creates scenarios in which when you do cross those wires, you have to handle those merge conflicts so that you have a consensus on what the correct version of the code should be, and managing that with other engineers and discussing how to resolve those specific problems is very, very fruitful insofar as the technical development of your skill is concerned. Another pro too is that if you stick long enough in the corporate environment, there may be a chance where a lead opportunity opens up and you get to actually lead other engineers. And I've had that experience myself, and it was both the most stressful, but as well one of the most rewarding experiences that I had from a technical perspective, from a leadership perspective, just because of how challenging it was, because it wasn't just about software, it wasn't just about coding. A lot of it was being able to deal with people, and not just any kind of people, but being able to deal with engineers. And now you have a team, and you want to protect that team, and you want to make sure that they're successful. And there's all these other dynamics that come to play. That's not just about writing code, as well as if it really depends on what the team dynamic is. But in my experience, when I was a lead, I got to design systems too. I got to implement lead the implementation of a design pattern on a new front end. So stuff like that was really, really awesome to be able to experience. And that kind of leadership is, you're only really able to lead if you have people. And a lot of times when you're solo engineering or you're freelancing, many times you're just the only guy there. You're the only engineer, or you're like a entire design and engineering team to yourself, right? So definitely when you're in corporate, that is one of the benefits is being able to lead. I would say another benefit here is, and I would argue that this is actually exists in freelancing too, which is that you learn while getting paid. And this is good because every time you're introduced to a new tech stack, especially early on, if you're unfamiliar, even if you know the technology, every team is going to implement that technology a little bit different. Their processes are going to be a little bit different. Some have are very strict to processes. Other teams are very loose with their processes. So those those dynamics change. But what is good is that if any of it is novel to you actually learning that is good, because you're going to get paid while you learn that software, right? And those different processes, the different stacks will give you experiences and new things. And that's always so valuable, because you don't know, maybe within like the next few years, you learn something kind of, it seems like it doesn't apply anywhere, like a specific subject or a certain type of implementation, that it doesn't seem, like I said, it doesn't seem like it goes anywhere. But a year down the road, your next job opportunity or a client you connect with is actually focusing on that specific problem that you thought was just like something that wasn't that big of a deal at the time. So that's valuable, because in order for you to learn that, you really, I mean, you made money while learning it, and then it helps you make money in the future with the new client or the new job that you have. So that's awesome. The other thing I would say here is the work-life split. like I said, I have experience in freelancing as well. And one of the things about freelancing is that your work and your life kind of do this, right? They merge into one another. And there's definitely times, especially when you're on a deadline, that this will happen in corporate software engineering as well. But many times it's not that. Many times the pacing is a little bit easier. And when 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock rolls around, you just go home and you're done. And then you're free to compartmentalize that part of your life and move on to the next thing. Whereas when you're, another way that you can implement the skill, for example, I keep referring to it, is freelancing. That's more difficult because if engineering is just one aspect of it, or designing is just one aspect of your job. Many other times you have to be sourcing clients. You have to be figuring out how to market your work. There's so many more levers and buttons that you can press, which is an advantage for other reasons, which I could do another video on. But point being is that your work and life start to become enmeshed, ultimately because especially when you're starting out, you're a one-man business, right? So you have to be everywhere at once. Whereas to work, it's like, man, it's 5, done. Go, you go watch Netflix when you get home, and you don't really have to worry about it that much. Again, the exception there being the deadlines. Around deadlines is usually when engineers have been known to pull crazy hours to get that software shipped. Okay, so another pro here is earning 6 figures is possible. A lot of other careers don't really have that upper limit of 6 figures. In engineering, that's still there, and I would say I don't really see that changing anytime soon. The best skill is always going to be able to demand that kind of value for their skill sets. And you can make a lot of arguments about that, but from even the most recent numbers that I saw, I think the 6 figures are there. Getting to the 6 figures is a whole other thing, but the capacity for you to get there is or the way for you to get there is there. It's just a difficult path to walk. But nonetheless, if you've never made 6 figures in your life and you want an opportunity that can take you there, it's definitely it. I mean, it's a challenging, and I would say it's more challenging now than it was in 2019 and even in 2020. But that's there. That option is there. And then this one kind of sounds selfish, but I do think this is a benefit that people won't say, but it's true, which is the prestige and social signaling, like telling people that you're a software engineer and that you work at certain company, especially if it's like a cool company, always comes with a certain prestige. I mean, there was a whole industry on YouTube that was built around that, of essentially showing off your colors of, this is where I worked at, this is what I've done, and this is why you should listen to me. And that, I would say, still carries weight. I would say if anybody pays attention to the news, they'll know now that tech has been hit with a lot of layoffs. So I would say you might, if you're in a social circle, still get, people might still be like, oh, wow, he's a software engineer. But then on the next thought might be, oh, like, haven't like software engineers been having like crazy layoffs? Like, how's your industry doing, kind of questions, But I would say in general, if you say I'm engineer and I work at X company, people are still like, wow, like that's cool. Like, I don't do that kind of stuff. So if that matters to you, that is something that comes with the job. I put here practice skills at scale, and I've kind of alluded to this one, so I won't delve too deeply. But usually the software that you're developing or working on is used by a large user base or a significant user base compared to most software that you work on your own, which typically has 0 users or you as the user. So being able to handle and think about problems at that scale, especially once you're given more responsibility over the software as a whole, is very, very valuable for the maturity of your skill set. So another pro is that the complexity of the problems that you deal with are also at a higher, or they're bigger. So there's higher complexity in those problems, and how you get about going to those, solving those things is a very, very valuable experience. And it really depends on who your lead is. But when I was a lead on my team, I wasn't always the expert on everything, and you'll rarely find it. Nobody really is. So what I would do a lot is I would leverage the individual skill sets of my other engineers, and typically the hardest problems were some amalgamation of everybody kicking the ball around as to we could try this or we could try that. And then when the conversation was done, we would have a clear consensus of where to move forward. Especially with the high complexity problems, there's certain problems that get high enough where your skill set and the paradigms in your paradigm of how to solve things is limited because you specialize more in this thing, but you have another engineer that specializes in your deficiency, so you guys can balance those out. And problem solving like that is sick. It is fun. It is stressful, but it is sick. And you just have like this like surge of euphoria when you solve something that was that was complicated, and doing with the team and the scope of the solve. And that now users are happy. You see other people be happy around you. Like there's a lot of coolness with that. And then I kind of alluded to this earlier, but there's another pro in that you learn to dance between people who are technical, so other engineers, or people who are just aware of, who have maybe a deeper understanding of software or just understand logical reasoning insofar as programming is concerned, to completely non-technical people, and navigating that dance of understanding who you're talking to and how you should present the information that you have to present to them. Is a universal skill that I still use in freelancing to this day, and is not something that I would have learned. You could learn it if you just went straight to freelancing, but I think corporate really is an incubator for those kind of conversations, because you have people from so many different disciplines talking about getting one thing done, which is typically like the release of the software. So navigating those conversations is cool. Like you get to understand also like why certain people just don't you also start to, I would say, like empathize too with people who are non-technical, because you're pretty much speaking Japanese to them when you start talking about the technology. And just a quick tip, if you want to know, one of the key things I learned is you want to speak in metaphor and speak in metaphors that they understand, so that they can understand the gravity of what it is that you're telling them, or the importance of what it is that you're telling them. And then here's another one. You mostly don't have to worry about the bottom line as an engineer. I mean, this really depends on the context of your employment. But for most of, especially the bigger the company, the more isolated your engineering efforts will be, which can also be a con. But you don't have to worry about am I going to lose money by writing this line of code? You can ship the code, and ultimately somebody else in the company, that's somebody else's responsibility to worry about the bottom line. Like I said, this can actually ultimately, I think, be a drawback from a general understanding of why it is that engineering is even valuable from a business context at all. But on a day-to-day basis, it is nice to just like, okay, I did my thing. I get to go home, right? This is the work-life balance thing that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, that I would say it's definitely nice to not have to have and again, it depends on the context, but not have to have like the livelihood of your business on the line every time you write a piece of code. Okay, so now let's go to the con. So the first con is being in office. Being in office sucks. I mean, some people like it. I think this is on a case by case basis. There are individuals that like the office, and I've been surprised. I mean, sometimes I have a bias towards remote work. And I kind of sometimes assume that other people have that bias too, but I'm surprised at sometimes how much certain people say, yeah, no, I actually like going into the office. So I really think it's a case by case basis. But if you're like a person like me, who's like, I don't necessarily like, I get overstimulated like super easy, and because all my work is digital, if I don't see the purpose and reasoning behind something, and the purpose and reasoning seems almost arbitrary, it's very hard for me to justify partaking in any particular behavior. So in-office work doesn't really resonate with me. That being the case, if you're the same, then engineering, especially in 2025, is there's a huge push to get people back into the office. I think a lot of people are already back in the office, and that could create a lot of logistical friction in your life, because you're committing a lot of time away from your home, or you're committing a lot of you're physically and a lot of times can't be in a space where maybe if you need the flexibility to go walk your dog, or you have to go pick up something from the grocery store, all those things that that you can do and still get your work done are taken away from you when you are forced to work in the office. So that really depends on where you land, but for me, that's a con. The other con is office politics. I in all my prior videos, I've had a cynicism. I'm really trying to chill that out because I don't think it's fair to just come out here and be cynical, and it's best to show both sides of the coin. But I will have to say that a lot of human institutions, human organizations always devolve into politics, not because I think there's anything inherently wrong, but because politics is inherently human. So there's always going to be that, and you can try to stay out of politics, but somehow, some way, it gets too sticky, and you'll bump into something, and even if you try to stay out of it, I would say it's still very wise to be socially adept and being able to pick up on being able to read between the lines and stuff like that, which is, I think, is very annoying to do, but it becomes a default state of operation for success and survival. And I hate saying that, but I think if you're viewing this and you've had any corporate experience, you'd agree. And then I put lack of job security. And this is something that I think I would have been more hesitant to say prior to this decade. But I would definitely say, especially for software engineers, in tech, it's just, I almost feel like sometimes, and this is probably not what's actually happening, but it almost seems like people are power tripping over being able to fire other people, because and then they have the whole cover of like AI is replacing all these people. We all know it's not, but they have like, people have a sweet spot right now or companies have a sweet spot right now where they can provide that cover of, hey, AI is sufficiently advanced, so we're going to chop all these people, yada yada yada. So they could look forward thinking while also getting rid of their head count. And I think that actually is unstable by nature, right? Because you don't know if you're going to have a job tomorrow, and can lead to quite a bit of paranoia. And I would add that to the instability, is that if you're paranoid about the security of your job, then how secure is your job, right? But yeah, I would say if you have that in the back of your head and you're able to be adept at being able to read the room and maybe read the warning signs when they're there, then you can navigate that more successfully. But I do think that is a reality that is unignorable in our decade in tech. And then I'll put here sheltered in box thinking. So another con is corporate is an internal it is our internal operations for an external facing business. And a lot of times, because you're so focused on internal operations as an engineer and as a corporate employee in general, you don't really understand the value of your work, because you're part of this bigger process of what the output for that business is, which is whether that's a service or a product. And if you're isolated from what that bottom line actually is and what leads to that bottom line being what it is, then you don't really understand the value of your skill set in a way. Because if you were to, many engineers, like for example, if you were to, outside of the context of corporate is what I mean. Like if you were to get, God forbid, but if let's say like you were to get laid off tomorrow, do you know what an invoice is? Do you know how to source clients? Do you know what kind of applications you could build? What kind of applications have you built for clients? What kind of applications have you built that generate money for clients? Those kind of things start to matter a lot. What is your portfolio showing? What projects are on your portfolio? Do you have any testimonials from prior clients that you've worked on? Do you know how to digitally market? Do you know how to produce content? Do you know how to write sales copy? There's all these extra factors that you have to check off before you actually get to write the code when you're on the business side of things. And it's only after you check those off that you can present the service, or maybe in some cases the product, which is the software itself in that case, to the end user. And if you don't know that and you're just in engineering mode, you're not even able to completely flex the capability of your skill set outside of that corporate context. So that in the box thinking can be very limiting, especially if you get laid off. But yeah, I would say that that's a con. I would add here having companies' views. So here's another con: having companies' views that are not your own, but forced on you. It's like the whole company culture thing. Like I've just never been somebody who just buys into that stuff, full on, just like freaking it's harder for me too, especially now. I think it's in me working at, or me doing my best to be a Christian. I suck at it quite a bit, but doing my best to be a Christian, it's very hard for me to put it's harder for me. It's not very, it's harder for me to put other things in that pedestal that's not God, and companies really want you to buy into whatever their vision is and whatever dream they're building, right? It's like put your things to the side, put the things that you value to the side, and buy into what we have going on, and that could be very it could be annoying, it could be frustrating, because really it should be justified. It should be good enough for you to just do your job well, and I would even argue very well, and to be able to go home. Like there's no need to having to buy into this. Like I have to wear the company colors, and like there's even like stories of people like getting company logo tattoos. Shout out Josh Fluke for highlighting stuff like that. Like those kind of things. Those are crazy to me. I don't identify with those things. And if you're somebody who does their best to be a critical thinker and to and to be independent in how you view the world, and to do your best to come to conclusions not because of what you're being told, but because of what you've verified yourself, then I think that buying into stuff like that is cringe, to say the least. And you might get treated like a child. There's another con here, that you might get treated like a child. Like most people don't want. There's nothing wrong with having fun, and I would agree. Like if you just want to, if you want to enjoy like a little thing that they do for you at work, I can't knock you for that. Like that's what you want to do. But ultimately, if I think where I hit like a wall with that is, I just clap my hands. But ultimately, where I hit a wall with that is if you are compensating. Instead of compensating people with pay for their hard work, you're compensating them with food, or it's just like there's a bunch of different ways that they can, I think hard work should always be compensated with more money, right? And should that come right away? No, I think that there's obviously, there should be a process where the value assessment is made, and you say, okay, well, because of this person making that effort for an extended period of time, and because of these results, we do believe that they should be compensated. So there should be that judgment and evaluation process of whether or not somebody should be compensated more or not, and how long that process goes depends on the context of the situation. But what I don't like is when it's placated like that. Like there may be some compensation, and one, the compensation doesn't come when you've done your part, or two, the compensation is much less than you expected. And perhaps the worst offender is that there's no compensation at all, but you get like a pizza party or something like that, right? So I think that's where I draw the line, is food is not a good replacement for your work, and bringing in like employee appreciation stuff, you get to paint at work, and or maybe you go and you do like karaoke with like your company or something like that. That stuff's cool. But if that's, like I said, if that, first of all, because of the original con, it's like I don't need to be treated like a child. Like I have adult responsibilities. I have bills that I have to pay. I have people that I'm responsible for. There's legitimate things that require money to get solved in this life, and I just don't see the value of how a pizza is going to help me take care of those things. Lack of novelties is another con, I would say. It's if you've been anywhere long enough, you might get very comfortable, and your job might become very easy, because you're just used to doing all the same things over and over again. And if you're somebody who thrives on novelty, if you're that kind of person that likes that novelty, it's definitely, the longer you stay there, the more likely it is going to be that you're going to get bored, because you've been there, done that, right? Along with that, another con is salary may breed conformity. If you know you're going to get paid X amount regardless of what you do, like the incentive to me, I think it does get manipulated a bit. or the incentive is easy to get manipulated because you're just like, okay, well, I could work 4 hours and I'm gonna get paid the same. I could work 10 hours and I'm gonna get paid the same. So I'm not actually certain. I don't know where I'm completely at with salaries, but I do know from my experience of it is that it has bred conformity, and that for somebody who, if you're somebody who likes to think of themselves as ambitious, or somebody who likes to be proactive and be building things, it's very difficult. It's a lot harder to have the incentive to go and build something new when your financial needs at a certain level are met, right? And they say that's when inspiration comes in and all this stuff. But not even just I'm not going to make an argument on that. What I am saying is at least there's a solid chance, I would say, that once you become salaried, it might impact your motivation to, or at least that zest that you have when you do your work, right? And somebody will probably say, "Oh, motivation is like just go and like show up." And I get it, man. Like, I do that sometimes. Like I do that most of the time. Like I show up, I don't want to do the thing, but like it's also really nice when you don't just depend on sheer grit and discipline to do something, and that you do get that motivation boost. So I think both of those realities can exist, both being grit and disciplined on a consistent basis. But if you can add that rocket fuel of being motivated into it, like why the heck would you not want that advantage, right? So there you go. Dealing with deprecated corporate norms. So this is something that I think is probably one of my biggest pet peeves, is that corporate is very outdated, right? It's like there's a lot of like boomer, like legacy ways of doing things and expectations that get placed on you that are not applicable to reality today. It's like the world doesn't even really operate in that way anymore. And it almost feels like corporate is just like this dying corpus of boomer thoughts and boomer processes that is just like holding on for their dear life, trying to get everybody to fit back in the box, even though we spent the last 5 years being outside of that box, right? And if you hate those formalities and you hate just not being able to speak frankly and free about the things that need to get done, it can become a huge problem, especially the longer that you stay somewhere. The inability to speak honestly. I mean, it really depends on the environment, but in my experience, sometimes being honest gets you more in trouble than just agreeing and just saying yes. You're just going to get less friction if you disagree, or you're honest about us, or you critique in a frank and an honest way. In my experience, I've seen it backfire on me more than I have seen it benefit me. And it's very sad, because you would think that mature adults can handle honesty a little bit better, or that, and sometimes you need, in order to advance to the next part of the project, there needs to be an honest reflection of where you're stuck. And if you can't have those conversations, a lot of times it stalls things, and it creates a stagnation, and it's just bad. But if you go and you express yourself in an honest way, there's a good chance you're probably going to get in trouble, or somebody's feelings are going to get hurt, and that could create a whole wad of like political mess. So yeah, I would say that's another con. I would add this potential subjection to toxic corporate behavior, like being treated in a disposable way. I would say the trend in corporate right now is to treat employees like crap. And I think employees have always kind of been like, but definitely right now it's kind of, it's like, I think a lot of this trend really started when, Elon took over Twitter earlier in the decade, and then just like chopped like a bunch of engineers, had them do like a bunch of, I remember I read it in the biography, like had them do like a bunch of performance tests based on those evaluations. Whoever didn't meet said performance test got chopped or whatever. You could argue over the efficacy of that or not. I would say if you're looking at it from a sheer performance standpoint, I would say it seems like it worked out for them, right? But from a perspective, from another perspective, or what I'm trying to say is that what that set out is that now CEOs, because CEOs are Elon fanboys, like that's cool. Like I think Elon's really cool too, right? But that's their thing. It's like if Elon does it, then it's okay to you to do it. I feel like that dynamic is there, and I was gonna try to validate that, because to say that I research the industry a lot. I mean, the channel's called Tech Industry Analysis, so I would assume you think that I value, like, that I research this stuff, right? But yeah, so from my research, what I'm trying to say is that from my research, it's like, yeah, like this. What was I gonna say? There's like a trend right now to chop employees, and to almost like, it almost seems like they have like a hair trigger, right? Anybody who has the capability to fire, like, they have like a hair trigger now, and they kind of hold it up against you. You know, it's like, oh, hey, you better be a good little boy, because if you're not, we're gonna chop you. You know, like, that kind of dynamic exists, and that is toxic. Like, who wants to go to work like that? Like, you know, and I've been in that environment where my job security has been threatened over a Zoom call. And it not in and it wasn't in like a, hey, we're gonna say it in this like corporate speak kind of way. It was like I was explicitly threatened. Like, my job security was explicitly threatened, and it's just like, you know, what the heck, you know? Like, is the money worth it? Is the money worth it at that point? You know, to get talked down like that? I don't know. Like, you got to decide. It's like, how far are you willing to tuck that tail between your legs before you say, no, that's it, you know? And it sucks, because there's a lot of pros, but that is a huge con. And then meetings. If you can't tell already, right? Another con for me is meetings. Most meetings are so unnecessary, right? They are legitimately unnecessary. This is why one of my favorite softwares to use in 2025 is Loom, because Loom just send them the Loom. Like, just record a video of you of what you're going to say in that meeting and send it to them. They can watch it on their time, right? And there's no this like middle ground of, hey, we're going to wait for this person, or hey, we invited you to the meeting and you might not say anything, and we might actually not need you at all, but just show up, like just for that presence, you know. Or there's no, like, people don't feel some type of way if you deny the meeting, or like that. That's why I like Loom, right? But ultimately, like, most meetings are generally a waste of time. In engineering, most problems can get solved on a chat between you and the other person that's trying to solve the problem. If there's a good reason to meet, that's where I would say, okay, well, that's important, right? Like, we need to meet. But if it's not there, and it's just kind of like this, like, pseudo, like, you just kind of doing it for like this, like, pseudo, like, subconscious pseudo feeling of like productivity, of like you're getting stuff done, but you're really just jumping between like one call to another call. And it depends also on the nature of your job. I mean, if you're on the business side, that is 100% more valuable. But if you're on the engineering side, like, look, I'm not getting paid to talk. I'm getting paid to produce really, really good software. If in order for me to produce that really good software, I actually need to meet, or I actually need to talk, then I will do that. But if not, then I would appreciate getting that time back to actually do my job, right? That's my stance on it. Some people like sitting on meetings. I do not. And then the last con that I'll say here is cognitive overload, mental, physical burnout. So oftentimes, especially if you're working, there's a lot of responsibility on you, or you're close to a deadline, that work-life balance that exists on more chill times when you're coding goes away, and you might be working for a excessive amount of hours for weeks or months at a time. And that will produce a physical to mental burnout that is very, very difficult on you. It's very difficult on the people around you. And it's very easy to manage that in an incorrect way, and it can be challenging to manage that in a correct way. And it can also be challenging for a lot of people struggle with setting boundaries. And if you're not somebody who can set boundaries in a corporate workplace, then I think that is definitely a toll and a cost that you pay for working in that specific environment. By the way, I hope that you guys like this video. Just to know a little bit about me, I am a software engineer. I do a lot more product design and web design nowadays. But I've been around, I guess, now in different facets of the industry where I've had success. Freelance, I've had some success in freelancing, and I've had some success in corporate software engineering as well. So I figured I'd share some of my experiences with you, and hopefully you find them valuable. I coach guys on how to get jobs in the industry. So if you are looking for a job right now, everything and all the information that I know about how to get a job is because I've seen it work for somebody else. I recently got one of my guys a job, and I got another one of my clients a pay raise after they got hired. Those are some of the results that I was able to provide just this year alone. It is a tough job market, but it is completely and totally possible. So if that all sounds good to you and you would like to work with me, I have a link to book a consultation down below. Other than that, if you want to learn some of those job hunting strategies yourself for completely free, go and check out this video right here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.